what happened here is this counselor just for whatever reason understood, and when I came back for our first official session, she actually asked me to be creative.
You're listening to the latest dose of Bipolar Recorder. This podcast may cause dizziness and blurred vision. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Bipolar Recorder. I'm Hunter Keegan. It's such a pleasure having you here today. This show has been running for almost 2 years now. Isn't that wild? We've featured dozens of in-depth conversations about mental health and well-being. We've laughed, we've cried. Yeah, we're covering a lot of territory on this show. In this latest series of installments, living with bipolar disorder is obviously challenging, even deadly, but I hope you've found that we can still celebrate ourselves and share our experiences with each other. For today's show, I had a man named Jamey Boelhower come on to talk about his life with bipolar. Jamey would probably start by telling you that he's a father, first and foremost, which I love. I think that's beautiful. But he wears many hats. When I chatted with him for a few minutes before we started recording, he mentioned to me that not only is he an indie author and poet, but he has led a long career in education. He's currently a middle school teacher, and he also coaches high school football. Not only that, but he's an adjunct professor at a community college. Jamey was diagnosed back when they still called it manic depression, and he discusses how the environment that he grew up in triggered his bipolar symptoms. He also talks about how a therapist who he met while attending grad school helped save his life. Now, here's one other thing. This can sometimes be a controversial area of discussion, but in this conversation, Jamey talks about how he copes with bipolar disorder without the use of medication. He extensively discusses the non-pharmaceutical self-care strategies that he incorporates to cope with mental illness. I always think that this is an interesting topic, but remember, on this show, we're not doctors and we're not providing medical advice. We're solely speaking from our personal lived experiences. There are a couple of content warnings for this installment. First, it involves some discussion about suicide and suicidality. Jamey doesn't disclose anything graphic, but some listeners may be sensitive to it. Additionally, at one point, Jamey discusses his family instability and dysfunction while he was growing up and some intense interactions he had with one of his mother's emotionally abusive boyfriends. Again, it's not graphic, it's also not physical in nature, but some listeners may be sensitive to this subject matter. All right, let's go ahead and hear Jamey's story. All right, we are rolling. Today I am joined by Jamey Boelhower, a man living with mental illness. Jamey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Awesome. I really appreciate you coming on the show. We were just chatting for a couple of minutes before we started, and I'm really excited to have you here. But before we go too much further, I did want to ask, would you mind sharing your formal diagnosis or diagnoses with the audience?
It's from the 80s when it happened as massive with suicidal tendencies.
Manic depressive with suicidal tendencies. That's what they called it
Yep.
back in the day.
Yep. That was about eighth grade year somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, so way back in the 80s.
So you were quite young when you were diagnosed, to like 12, 11 years old or something like that?
More like 13, 14.
13, 14.
Yeah.
Wow. So what brought about that diagnosis?
Oh, that this is where it gets interesting because I have one of those stories that honestly, if it was written in a book, nobody'd believe it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
truth is harder than fiction type of thing. Um, I come from at part of that diagnosis and at that time was parents moving a lot, separation. I just it was just one of those cases of the environment. I do think there's probably some heredity involved, but I've never really uh, delved into that. Never, just found my way through it and had some really, especially in college, really big counseling moment and stuff that probably saved my life. But it was environmental. I was that kid. I was hyper all the time and then really sad.
Yeah.
And had some people in the school system. I'm a teacher now. Just who was looking out for me and started, helping out. So,
Yeah. So it was kind of a long journey. It's not like you initially get that diagnosis when you're 13 and then everything makes sense from there, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of
No,
a
it did not get any better for a long time.
wow. So did they put you on medication and stuff at that age?
No. And I've never really looked at getting medication.
Okay.
Um, Going through counseling and some things like that, and working through things and understanding, being self-aware of what can make a depressive state happen. Not eating well, not getting exercise, and in this case, not being creative.
Hmm.
Like not writing my poetry and stuff like that can make life pretty rough. So I stay on top of it without worrying without medication.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting for sure because there's a lot of controversy that surrounds medication. And some of these medications do have really awful side effects for some people. I know, speaking from what I've seen on internet forums and stuff, it's like when you talk about not taking medication as someone who lives with bipolar, there's actually a lot of stigma within the bipolar community about that. Have you ever gotten that reaction from people?
Uh, no, but I've also been in education, and the medication and the labels that sometimes come with just all kinds of things, attention deficit disorder, and also being a community college instructor, a unique perspective about things. I Medication and using it is a really personal decision. It is on all kinds of different levels and for different aspects of life. I just have never decided to venture into that to even test it out. I
Mhm.
just work every day in regards to my own well-being. And again, I did, and we'll probably get to it, in college and grad school, just happened to get a counselor that helped me
Mhm.
deal with some stuff. And that was big. That was a big turning point in my life.
Yeah, and I absolutely wanted to circle back to that. I know just a couple of minutes ago you mentioned as a young adult you had this really incredible, like life-changing, life-saving experience. Could we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I I had two major suicidal moments. One was in high school, and one was actually in college. And I didn't actually, was in counseling even in high school, but I moved around a lot too. So like just the environment I grew up in was really tough to sustain dealing with stuff. It was hard. And in junior year in college, some friends stepped in. Okay, did get some counseling, but it's still it wasn't the big turning point. I have been a writer since elementary school. So I was in my first year of grad school, and I have tried to reach out to this counselor. I've forgotten her name. I hate that, because to just let her know. But I just had a really rough moment, and I was like, okay, I need to get some help. Okay. And again, I don't know. I've always been pretty self-aware of things. And I walked into the student counseling center on campus. So I'm like 20, this would put me about age 23 or 24. And I just sat down and I said, hey, and I just talked.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened here is this counselor just, for whatever reason, understood. And when I came back for our first like official session, she actually asked me to be creative. She actually asked me to do a metaphorical, artistic interpretation of who I was.
Wow.
And I'm mostly a writer, but I actually am an artist also. I draw, I do. And I sat down, and she just let me be there for, like 30 minutes, just drawing out this representation. And then we talked through it. And almost every session, I spent time being creative.
Huh.
And then she would build through that interaction, whether a lot of it was drawing, sometimes it was poetry, and things like that. But it was kind of maybe the really first time that somebody who was trying to help me like understood me.
Yeah.
And so allowing me to be creative really helped me deal with lots of things. Made a connection for me of understanding that being creative helps me deal with the emotional aspect. It helps me deal with feelings and stuff. And I'm kind of that classic people like read my poems, and they're like, if they don't know me, they're like, how can you write this when I see you like this every day,
Yeah.
And I get it. That is a unique aspect of being a dad, of being a teacher, a coach, stuff like that, it doesn't mean people who have mental illness, whatever it might be, doesn't mean we're not happy and we can't feel joy and stuff. We just have this current that sits inside, or
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes comes out, in destructive ways or in different ways. For me, it's my creativity. So they read my poetry and go, like I do. It's a disconnect for them because they don't know me. They don't, they don't really understand what is going on in regards to those words.
Do you think they're struck because, for example, it may be dark, or is it just something that maybe you're expressing ideas that you don't normally talk about with your friends? Why do you think that is that way?
Some of it's dark or really depressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
you know. Um, and it's not my inner circle, and even some people in regards, because I do blog and stuff, really hardcore readers don't. It's those kind of everyday type of people, because um to a degree, I probably still have some manicness in me, even though
Yeah.
like 50 years old,
Hey,
um
it's a lifelong condition, man. You
yeah,
know, it affects you from the time it starts manifesting until the time you die, right?
yeah, yeah. And again, we have good day, and so they see the facade, in which I think
Mm-hmm.
I've listened, and lots of people talk about the face or the front that they put out, to the world, and that
Mm-hmm.
causes its own problems anyway. Sitting behind that mask or that facade. And so then when I do open up or they read something that they can't see that they
Mm-hmm.
can't see the true self really.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a very interesting relationship and a productive relationship that you had with the therapist who you started seeing.
That counselor, that first year of grad school, probably saved my life.
Yeah. So, do you think that he or she was able to intuit that you were a creative person, or did you share with them that you're highly creative?
At this, because that's a while back. I don't know if it was because of the story I told or what, or that they were just good at their job and caught it. I don't know what sparked her to have that first session and ask me to draw, to give
Yeah.
me a metaphorical self portrait, type of thing. I actually still kind of remember the picture and everything, and it's sometimes life blesses us with opportunities to be well, and it was a big turning point. I'd actually would then later leave that school to go pursue a different grad, like all of that. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden I was like healed.
Hmm.
Okay. I still deal with a lot of things in regards to the environment I grew up in, and all of these things. Um, but it changed my direction. It changed the direction to a solid path of a good life.
Mm.
And again, that's kind of why people, when they do even now read my poetry or read a blog, they're like, whoa, if they don't really know me, because they're like, that is a disconnect. I don't see you that way, because I still deal with it. I still
Yeah.
have questions. I still are thoughts and emotions that just suddenly hit, you know. And so, but that counseling for that year just was amazing. That's the best I can to say in that regard.
Are there any other green flags that really stood out to you, if you recall?
Um, One that it wasn't just the one time, to be artistic. Like
Mm.
she asked me to be creative almost all the time.
Okay.
And I understand what she did there to a degree, in regards to finding the communication channel that works.
Hmm.
As a teacher, as a dad, as a coach, none of my kids are the same. They all communicate a little bit differently. My students, I'm a track and football coach. They all communicate, and once you kind of find that right channel to talk to them or allow them to express, that's when you can build a good relationship, solid foundation, help deal with bigger concerns.
Okay. So you worked with this therapist for about a year, you said,
Mm-hmm.
correct? So I'm imagining you've worked with a lot of other therapists since then, right?
No, I did a lot of different ones through middle school, through college.
Okay.
After that, not no, I've not have ever done official therapy after that.
Interesting. Okay.
Should I at times? That's a different question. That's
Sure. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. If we're being honest here, sure.
Yeah, if we're being honest, that's a different question. Um, but I also, to a degree, as we talked at the beginning, I understand myself pretty well too.
Mhm.
I understand when I to like need to write. Like I will tell my wife, I'm going to this coffee shop,
Yeah.
like I, you know, um, or I try to walk a lot and to process and think and and stuff like that. So since then, no official, again, different question in regards to whether I should have at different times on my timeline. But I take care. I take care of
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah,
Uh,
self-care is definitely as important as therapy, as medication. If you're not taking care of yourself, no one's going to do it for you, right?
right. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. It sounds like art and creativity have been extremely instrumental for you in terms of self-care and just making it through this crazy thing that we call life. I wanted to ask you, in your poetry or even in your drawings or your visual art, do you have common topics that you tend to write about? Like,
Oh.
do you have recurring themes? Okay.
Yes. Um, yes, I do. I have uh uh dealing with my parents.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
um, and again, sometimes I share some stuff with my students. I teach a seventh grade little 9-week course, and I share. I used to be a seventh grader. And sat there in the back of the room, and in that sense. So just really quickly, because again, nobody would believe the whole story. My mom, biological mom, who I do not talk to at and haven't for a long time, was married and divorced 7 times.
Mm,
I went through 5 of them. Had stepdads. She had some boyfriends. Had a really troubling boyfriend.
mm,
Um, he and this was junior high. So on top of it, it was junior high. Um, really was a very gifted carpenter. And this is only a small sliver of it, just to understand where my poetry and what I write about sometimes a lot. Um, so he would always have me help, but I couldn't ever do anything right.
mm,
He kept guns in the house. And he had, when he got drunk, he would do this really weird thing. He would come into my room and turn on, I had a bathroom to my room, and he would stand in the doorway. So all I saw was a shadow of
mhm.
him. And he would hold different items, like a hammer in his hand. And so I would see it. Again, if this was in a story, nobody would believe me.
I
um,
believe you. That's
um,
fucking crazy,
yeah,
dude. What was he doing? He's trying
he
to
was a
intimidate you or something?
Yeah,
Like,
because he was just. I spent so much of my seventh grade year at the library across the street.
yeah.
Like I just the library. I have a blog post about that a little bit, but I would not go home. I
Hmm.
would go to the library until it closed, come home, do, and so I just so then, but I hadn't actually really talked to my biological dad since I was like 10 years old. Really weird. There's some stuff we have touched based a little bit. I touched base with him when I was in grad school. Again, he too was an alcoholic. Um, my mother was also a drug dealer and drugs and stuff. And then she found Jesus. And then my whole story is just crazy. So, um, and so interestingly enough, it's ironic. When I became a dad, And not saying that parenthood isn't hard, right? I mean, you get tired, but I was like, this is not that hard. I love my kids. I try to do best, my kids, I'm trying to be a good parent. Not perfect. I'm not okay, but I'm just like, I've worked really hard at being a good dad and having a strong family. And honestly, it pissed me off even more
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, why? Like, my biological mother would move me here and then she would leave
Mm-hmm.
and I would have to deal and find, and then she'd call like my sophomore year in high school, in the middle of my sophomore year, I'm doing well in football, da da da. Hey, God wants us to be together. I moved to South Bend, Indiana, come off the bus at Christmas Eve, and we're homeless.
Wow.
I spend a day and a half or so on Christmas just walking the streets of South Bend, Indiana, partly because she wants to try to save the homeless because God has told, but I don't have a home. You just
Mm-hmm.
took me out of, I was a big year because that summer I just walked away.
Yeah.
I called some people back the town I was living in, and I'm like, I'm coming. I don't have a place still, but I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't like I tried as best I can, doesn't, but I totally basically just said that I'm done with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So my poetry, even young, and like part of the craziness and the question I still struggle with, and what comes through is why wasn't I good enough?
Mm.
And I still on it. It's to be honest, I still struggle. I do. I mean, we're all sons or daughters. We all want you know uh to be loved, to be told people are proud of us. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh,
when I became
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
and when I became a
100%.
dad, I was like, it made me mad. It made me angry because I'm like, this, like, I'm raising my kids.
Yeah.
We're building a career. I'm building, I just like, what the, why? And that just, to a degree, deepens sometimes that pain, that cloud, that whatever, because, and I maybe could still ask, but I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm done. I've just, I don't, I've built my own life.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that question about should I have had some therapy after um grad school, yes, maybe I should have, but I
Mm-hmm.
also want, after that year, I don't know, there was this sense that I am my own person and I am a creative, and and I had this drive to have a better life, and that
Yeah.
compass is still true. Like, I still work really hard at being a good dad. That's my first and foremost aspect of my life, then to write and then to teach and stuff like that. But that's my focus, and I think
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like in the circumstances that you grew up around, you didn't have that like stable, loving figure, and now you're affording that to your own children. And that's really beautiful. I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with attachment styles? Like, did you
Mm-hmm.
ever, so you're,
My first degree is in psychology.
okay, there you go. Yeah, so as I was listening to you tell your story, I was just thinking like, oh, like insecure attachment styles.
Yeah, I am still. And my wife would tell you, and my kids recognize it. I don't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not very good at small talk. Um, I just it doesn't mean I'm disrespectful or any, but I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you into my inner circle until you have just like my inner circle is very small.
Mm-hmm.
So
And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think that's perfectly fine. And if that's what works for you, then go for it. Um,
It doesn't. It doesn't. Like, my father-in-law is kind of old school country kid guy. He just can talk to anybody. Like he just like just walks up and they're just having conversations and they're like friends within like 3 minutes. And
yeah.
he can bridge the with all kinds of people, and it's kind of I'm a little bit jealous because you can see how joyful it is for him to be able to build a connection with people, even if it's
Hmm.
just for that 10 minutes or so that we're, whatever. And, to a degree, I understand that I don't do that and I have a little bit of an air, some people think I'm snobby or something, you know,
Yeah.
but I just do not try. I can't. I am better. I will
Mhm.
admit, I'm a little bit better. But I just don't let people in. I,
We can't all just be classic extroverts. You got to have some introverts in the mix too. I do want to talk to you a bit about being a parent while living with mental illness. That's certainly no small feat. And you've spoken so much about how important that is to you. So I was just curious if maybe we could talk a little bit about what that component of things is like. Did it did it scare you when you first started having kids? I don't have any kids, so this is like uncharted territory for me.
yeah. No, it didn't.
Okay.
Uh, Part of that again was my goal of building a solid life. Um, there's two things. One, and my kids do know my story when they get old enough. I tell them enough
Okay.
about it. Okay. They do read my poetry. They do know, what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
they don't know that if I wake up one day and I'm having a gray day, just a poetic way of saying that there's happiness around me, but it's outlined in gray.
Hmm.
Like but I think they feel that. Um, but I keep in mind that part of the reason I am here is to be a good husband, a good father. And it's so easy to say, but it's a deep compass. And I just know I'll probably end up going to the coffee shop or I'll write. My family knows that sometimes I'll just say, "Hey, I'm gonna write." I put my headphones on, and they don't bother me. They know that I'm just being creative. Um, but here's where the scary part is, and to a degree, that question of what I should have done until now is I do think that maybe there is a little bit of biological aspect.
Hmm.
My second son, actually now, he owns his own business stuff, but he has been talking to schools about mental health
Okay.
because he had a really bad episode.
Mm.
And it was his sophomore year, and that was scary, just in the sense of being a parent. Just
Hmm.
when your kid falls off the bike, that's scary the first time as a parent because oh my gosh, what are you okay? But I kind of recognize it. I understood we had already understood our communication channel, and there's the
Oh,
light.
oh yeah. I thought I lost connection there for a
Nope,
second. I
nope,
was like, no.
nope. And so it's that aspect of dealing and seeing, and I think you know, obviously he's doing better, but like that genetic part or the heredity part of it, I don't know. Maybe
Hmm.
I kind of see one of my daughters has that really high emotional feeling, like the world, the stress of the world really sits on them,
Hmm.
and stuff. And all children, all people, there is differences. But that part, it's not scary per se. It's like, okay, I have to be prepared to help them any way I can.
Mhm.
Whether, we did actually, when that happened, we actually got him some, not exactly counseling, but check-in type of thing with somebody that he felt comfortable talking with,
Okay.
who is a school counselor,
Okay.
but yeah. So it's not like the official therapy and scheduled from 8 to 7. It was, hey, okay, we've opened up this channel. When you're feeling you go,
Okay.
type of thing. And now he talks about it. He's 20 years old. He actually gets school people, because he didn't go to college either. He's got his own unique story. He's 20 years old and runs his own business and does all. Um, but he taught, it's something very important to him, and he has, over the last about 2 years now, goes to schools and talks about the stuff. And it's kind of cool to kind of see that,
Yeah.
because he's lived through it too, and he
Mhm.
knows, what kids might be going through a little bit fresher in a sense than I would. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been decades now since I was a teen. And so that's the other part, is the biological. What is there? What part of the environment mixed with the situation, did I pass on?
Mhm. And there's certainly a plethora of research out there indicating that bipolar has some sort of genetic component to it. Do you Would you ever feel responsible in some way for potentially, like, having passed this down? Like, would you
Oh
look at
no, no, not no.
No, yeah,
I just
you're just
no.
like, "Nah, nah." No,
I just
I agree with you, though. I just had to ask that question because it's a common thing that, there's people out there who say that bipolar people shouldn't have kids, and I think that's messed up.
Well, and when mental illness, whatever that it could be, attention deficit disorder, in my case, it was manic depressive, high and low and all that stuff, just there is, it's basically comes down to the nature nurture argument in
Mhm.
psychology about who we are, and things like that. Um, my environment messed me up. Like, it just being on, like it, that was the biggest hurdle. But knowing a little bit of some of the other things, I think some of this, my biological dad was kind of the wild child of his family. I have two uncles that are college professors,
Mm.
and who do like, but he was the one that got into drinking early, and and just, and obviously just did some crazy other stuff. And whether my biological mother was that way, but drugs and alcohol and stuff were involved, but also just a crazy kind of this wild manic type of, so it, being a dad has just showed me that your children are, yes, part of who you are biologically, but
Mhm.
they're also their own individuals. They're
Sure.
all raised under my house, and my kids are all different. I have an athlete, I have a artist, I have a theater kid, I have,
Mhm.
I, so no, I do not feel guilty in regards of any aspect that I might have, in regards to their DNA of some of the struggles, because I think, honestly, and especially as intense as our culture is right now,
Yeah.
mental health is not just biological.
Mhm.
Now, some people, there's a big component, part of that, yes. Others, it's emotional, the mental, just the kind of person that they are. The stress of our culture right now is making lots of people edgy, angry, just
Yeah.
probably not the people we would see them as on one to one. But boy, we see a whole kind of different side, so
Yeah.
no, I do not feel any guilt or anything in
Sure.
that
And,
regard.
like honestly, and I don't think you should either. Like I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit over
Yeah.
here tonight, right? I think that it's a really ableist perspective to say like, oh, well, you shouldn't have kids, or like if you did have kids, you should feel responsible or guilty or what have you. Um, I did want to ask you though, um, regarding some of the things that you've written, some of these different projects that you've done over the years, do you have one that like really stands out as your favorite, like a favorite poem or book or article or blog post or anything that you've written?
Um, uh, actually, well, so that's a it's a good question, but it's hard to answer in a sense, um, because there's so many different. My latest collection of poems is called the Are These Words Believe in Ghost, and it's my latest poetry, and a lot of the poems in there are about history and about kind of what I've tried to do. And obviously the ghost are the emotions and the things I've gone through. I have one called poem in there called "They Say," and it addresses they say that your belief in God is your relationship with your father,
Hmm.
and I go off on that. And then they say that your belief in love is your relationship with your mother.
Hmm.
And then like the third verse is they say that you can't break out of the cycle of your past. And I challenge that they say within
Hmm.
that poem. With that. Right now, me and my son, who does the talks and stuff at school, we do our own creative podcast. They called the Creative Moment because
It's
he's a
awesome.
photographer and stuff, and so we sit and talk about the creative life basically, and aspects of that. So I'm just kind of I'm honestly just kind of proud of all the things that I kind of do. I've been blogging for over a decade. Not that
Mhm.
my blog has ever taken off or made me any money,
Hey,
but
who cares?
you know,
That's not
uh,
what it's about, right?
yeah, no, it's about talking, and I have some really uh interesting times where I talk about my past, not exactly in the story, but I talk about things and how I'm feeling, and stuff like that, and connected though to fatherhood, to uh, creating a strong life. Um, just because I'm talking. There's one I don't remember what it's called, but there was a day where all these I call them dots. That's a motif I use throughout my blog of that when life gives me dots. And there was one dot that that day as I was gassing up, and this dad went into the gas station, but his small son was still in the car, and the door was open. Again, but the son was like you could tell as a dad that something had happened, and the son was like, Dad, like he was trying to get his attention, trying to ask for forgiveness or something, and that just wrecked me. Like
Oh,
that just, and just because there's other dots that day about stuff, and so I blogged about it again. That connection, that the aspect of knowing myself and what I need, to stay ahead or above sometimes the bad feelings, or stuff like that. And so I blogged as a little bit lengthier because there's some other dots that day. But oh my gosh, the that moment just sits in my head. I can see the car door, I can hear the tone of the child's voice. Like I just, and that's why I write though too, because I want to share, that stuff too. Like to let people know basically that whatever you might be feeling or stuff like that, other people are doing it too. Other, you know, people work through it, and stuff like that. So,
Right. So, regarding what you were talking about a couple of moments ago with just the like social tension and where things are at socially right now, um, I think it's interesting because you work with young people so much. Have post COVID, like post lockdowns, do you think that's when you started really seeing it?
oh, um, there is a stark difference.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Now there's a couple of other social things that have been building, because I've been in education, uh, like 27 years now, maybe 26. I'm 102. Yeah. And so I see some things and have noticed some things like,
Hmm.
um, the nuclear family being different, lots of separated families, and the cost of that stuff. Then obviously COVID happened, all right, and this lockdown, and the political tension and all these things. And we happened to be a school that we went into lockdown, finished a year, and then we went back the next year, and
Mm.
we had masks, and the whole political aspect of that was rampant in our school, from school board members to students. I mean, just as a symbol of the tension of what was going on.
Hmm.
Um, and all of a sudden, it just seemed like it was okay to be mean, just to be mean,
Hmm.
just to say, I don't care. This is what I think, and you can F off,
Yeah.
and on both sides. Just sorry. I'm just like, honestly, it just was this. And I deal with a lot of seniors. Like, I teach a lot of seniors who are on that cusp of adulthood, and stuff. And um, it really hasn't changed since then. That's what
Mm.
I'm so kind of troubled about.
Yeah.
We haven't had like an eight now. Okay, we're coming back. We're, some social norms of, I respect you, I will treat you in such a way. No, it's just like, it just seems to be, not as intense, but now spread out to all forms of a social interaction.
Hmm.
And whether it's on TikTok or all this stuff of highlighting, people who can't handle if their pizza order gets wrong.
Hmm. Yeah. And then you have like these powder keg sort of scenarios too, where it's like the overall environment, tying it back to environment, like the overall environment is so heavy and like so aggressive that I mean, I feel just, and I don't think this is like an anecdotal thing. I like gun violence is out of control right now. And I'm not making any
Yes.
statement about the Second Amendment. Like I'm not
Yep.
trying to be
I
political.
understand.
I'm just saying every fucking week there is a mass shooting, like sometimes multiple times a week in this country, and it's horrifying. And anytime that happens, there's always the conversation that follows about, was this caused by mental illness, or like how was mental illness involved? And it drives me crazy, man.
And a little bit of the reason, to wanted to be on the show a little bit, just to talk about, there's good things stuff too, but are like the environment now, our society, anybody who is dealing with any kind of whatever level of mental health issues, this is hard. It is hard. And it doesn't mean the people who maybe are acting in violent ways and stuff, it's the other people who, and I'm not going to say my students totally, but in just regular, they're like, why? What am I going to do next year? What is this worth? Why? what kind of world am I trying to step into as a young adult?
Hmm.
Why does it even matter?
Yeah.
And that the heaviness of it, and you throw in if somebody is struggling for whatever reason, biological or environmental, with mental issues and things, like it's a daily kind of grind that just wears out even the strongest person.
Yeah. Not to mention when you have these kids and these young adults who have missed such important developmental milestones, like those social developmental
Mhm.
milestones, because they've been locked down for like 2 to 3 years. And it's, I mean, you're the first person who I've heard that from, but it's not surprising that it's like, yeah, and there's a carryover effect from that. It's not like the lockdowns ended and stuff kind of started stabilizing and things were just back to normal. It's like that is time that these people will never get back.
Yeah, and then they're like, so our my school is a little bit small. Like our town is like 25,000, and we had a lockdown drill the day after a small rural school actually had somebody show up on campus threatening, and the police, and like
Yeah.
the whole buzz, like everybody knew about, everybody's like, oh, and so, and they're this, and social media added to it. Not the social media added the intensity of how quick everybody knew what was going on.
Hmm.
And we had already had ours planned, because now it's a routine that we had, like fire drills. We have to have these lockdown, and it was just a heavy day.
That is
It's
so
just,
scary.
you know, um, and so the hard part, there's not the simple answer is we simply have to be able to emotionally be able to respect and understand other people. Now, that respect changes as they interact with us, to a degree, but honestly, it's just, maybe it's an unpopular opinion. I see you, Hunter, like you're okay, and I recognize you as a person, and appreciate you, and start from there. Now,
Yeah.
I understand life is more complicated than that, and beliefs and personal histories and other things, but uh, that's not where we are right now.
Yeah.
And you throw in all the complexity of other aspects, like my students who parents just got a divorce, or another student who's, you know and this has happened. My wife happens to be a teacher too. That the parents just totally forgot their birthday,
What?
and the kid, like, it's just like, I sometimes I'm just, it's like, just see each
Hmm.
other first, okay, and then we can move from there a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. It's pie in the sky. I get it, but we need something. We need something different, because we're not doing it well right now.
I was talking to someone about this type of stuff recently, and something I was reflecting on was like, just it is so much easier to me to just be like kind and positive. Like I feel like when I'm trying to be like negative or angry or mean to someone, it takes a lot of cognitive energy to do that. Like I have to like consciously plan it out. But if your default mode is just like, hey, be chill, we're all good. We're all gonna spread love and positivity and peace. And you don't even have to take it to that crazy hippie of a level either. It can just be like what you were saying, just showing mutual respect to one another. All that's super important for sure.
To a degree, anybody who has gone through some rough spots, and either emotional and mental aspects, to a degree, I think that that's what they also crave,
Hmm.
you know um and I don't know exactly, well, I do know that moment in grad school and stuff helped me. But I've also, before that, and why people were even shocked in middle school, um, is I really did understand pretty early that the way my parents and me going back and forth, because I actually lived with my dad between the ages of 5 and 10, and he had a new family, and I was like, I just kind of understood this is not good. This is not the way I want to actually live. Like, this is not how I want to be treated, or want things to go. It took my sophomore year in high school for me to kind of walk away, but I think people do know that. Um, I'm not sure why we are not there.
Mhm.
You know,
The $1,000,000 question.
yeah. Because we got enough self-help books and all that in the book, but that's not helping. Like, I
Yeah.
just the simple component of respect and just guidance of being kind to start out with,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure. Well, do you have any other kernels of wisdom or advice for anyone who is on a mental health journey of some sort? Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
And we talked about at the very beginning, you mentioned too, how you have to be a component for yourself. There's two parts to this to a degree. But you got to kind of know yourself well enough though too. Oh, this is tricky. When we are on our daily, everyday life, okay, everybody has good days, everybody has bad days. Okay, you throw in things like depression or a manic episode or an environmental situation, and unpopular opinion, culturally, I think we get the message that it's okay to just give up. If you know yourself and you actually know your strength and you know your why and what you're really trying to do in regards, whether it's career, relationships, and you choose that, then the days are easier to handle. With it, then I know that I have to tell my wife. My wife does not see the turmoil inside. I say, I'm gonna go to the Blue Moon, I'm gonna go write. Or I just tell, hey everybody, I'm gonna work on a poem, and I put my headphones on, and my family just like, okay, dad's gonna be there. Even if I'm at the kitchen table, but they also know that they could come get me if a dad moment happened, like,
Yeah.
but I know myself well enough to understand that. And that takes a lot of inner work. And again, I do know that I was blessed with a really great counselor that year of grad school that got me, that understood, that just took me 180 degrees, did not solve. I have days to where sadness and depression, like, just, and I have some poems that talk about that. But that's what the poetry does. Poetry allows me to express it, and to connect with other people. So maybe they read it and go, oh yeah, I get that. And to help them find the strength, to choose their deep central compass, their why. And I think that is a counter message a little bit to what our society says right now. And you take care of yourself, but choose your strength, choose your why, choose your goals and aspirations, and it will set your feet on a more solid path than just feeling lost and stuff like that.
Love it. Well, let's talk about some of these projects. Definitely want to have you plug your blog, anything else you've been working on. Do you have anything coming up that you'd like the audience to know about? Any social media they can find you on? Just anything of that nature?
Oh, you can follow me on social media. My Twitter is jdog90. I was a really early Twitter user when you made your call sign like really, fun. And I've just never changed it. I mean, I still Jamey Boelhower, but it's at jdog90.
There
I
you
just like,
go.
no, I'm just gonna keep it. That's
It's
not a
old
big deal.
school. Why
Yeah.
change it? Why fix it if it ain't broke, you know?
Yep. So I am on Amazon. I'm an indie author. I self-publish all my stuff.
Awesome.
Um, I've got 10 books. They're all a lot of them are poetry collections. I do have a fiction book. I do have a collection of blog posts from earlier a little bit and some of mine. I do not blog consistently, which again goes against the norm. My blog is It's All Connected, where I just talk about all this stuff.
Hmm.
Just kind of what we're doing now. Some of it's pretty deep, some of it's inspirational. And some of it's about the writing life or being a independent creative, like being an indie author is not easy with that. So I do have though oh, I'll also me and my son do a blog, and I will have another book of poetry collection coming out. um you had asked. I actually, one of the books I'm most proud of is my April 2020. It
Okay.
is a book that each April is poetry month, and so there's always a challenge to write a poem a day. And so I compiled those, but then I added a narrative um, that reflected what it was like dealing with the pandemic at that time. Like, so the very first poem is called To the Old Man Gardening, and is a poem based off of I was already walking because we had been locked down. It was like the ninth day I'd taken a walk, and this old man was out there gardening,
Hmm.
tending to his garden. And the poem deals with me thinking like, here we are, everybody's going lockdown. I'm walking, yes, but because I know the house and they have beautiful flowers, and he's just out there attending to his garden. And like, I can tell that you're old enough to have probably gone through the Great Depression, a world war. You know, is this just another day for you? Is it,
Yeah.
it just was amazing. So the whole book is me sharing the poem and then kind of doing that storyteller thing with it about what was going on that day, about writing the poem. And the subtitle is A Time Capsule of Writing and Living During a Pandemic.
Nice.
Yeah. So it turned out, that book, I think, turned out really kind of interesting.
That's
Um,
cool. And
yeah.
and so that's on Amazon as well?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will be sure to include all of that in the episode description for our lovely listeners. And Jamey, I just wanted to thank you again so much for coming on. This has been a really awesome conversation.
Yes. It's so nice to actually see you because I usually listen to the Spotify one, so I don't have the video and stuff. You are doing some great work.
Oh,
Um,
thank you so much.
because you're generating the conversation, you're giving people a voice, but you're also, by doing that, making available for people to have solutions, things to consider, and in a time when we need more positive presence in our world, you are fulfilling that, and that is awesome. And I'm honored to be a part of your uh, goal and mission that you're doing. And I appreciate
Wow.
and thank you for having me on.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Means so much to me. Seriously, thank you for saying that. Um, Definitely really, really means a lot to know that this project is resonating and maybe even helping people in some ways. So Totally appreciate that. And again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for listening to this installment of Bipolar Recorder. Jamey Boelhower can be found on Twitter at JDog90. That's JDOG90. Jamey has a lot of interesting work that he's put out over the years and has numerous online presences. I think Twitter is probably the easiest way to find him, but you can also check out his primary website, itisallconnected.blog, to learn more about his various works. He also has an author page on Amazon where you can purchase his books. His personal favorite work that he mentioned during the show is called A Time Capsule of Writing and Living During a Pandemic, and it's available on there on Amazon, and I've also linked it in the episode description so you can find it that way. My name is Hunter Keegan. I'm on Twitter at HHKeegan. Bipolar Recorder is on Twitter at Bipolar Recorder. Twitter is our main hub. We are weathering the Elon Musk shit show and are holding down the mental health community fort. I've been a bit less active on Twitter Spaces lately. As many of you know, Twitter Spaces is a public audio chat feature on Twitter, and over the last couple of years, myself and others have created a community there of basically 24/7, easily accessible mental health support, just peer chats, casual in nature, but they're really helpful, and I think people really get a lot out of them. So I apologize that I haven't been as active on there lately. It is one of the primary ways this show has gathered a following. To all of our mental health chill zone Twitter space regulars, I hope you're doing well, and I will try to periodically host spaces once I have the availability again. You can find additional bonus content and material from me on platforms such as Instagram, Mastodon, Wisdom, and even YouTube. Take a dive and see what you can find. It might just blow your mind. See, there's some poetry for you. Speaking of creative stuff, I just released a new album. It's called Strange Americana, and was primarily inspired by my manic 2015 road trip that I've referenced a number of times throughout this podcast series. This album is a 5-song EP and is available for streaming everywhere, including Spotify and Apple Music. It's linked in the episode description. Give it a listen and let me know what you think. It draws from a wide range of genres, but I like to call it a psychedelic Western jaunt. Again, that's called Strange Americana, and it's available now. Bipolar Recorder is an independently produced project, and it does take a lot of time and money to keep it running. If you'd like to support this endeavor, please check out our Patreon page and tell a friend about the show, post about it on social media, and or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. These are all super quick, easy ways to support mental health advocacy and awareness and social progression. We are a grassroots effort, and your support means the world. Thanks so much to everyone who is helping spread the word. Normally, I close out the show with a song of mine called Phantoms in Dakota. It's off of an album that I released several years ago with my group Last Known Images, but since I just dropped this new EP, I'm going to leave the title track here for you. It's called Strange Americana. Have a wonderful and safe day, evening, or night wherever you are.
love, it's a long ride. I met a man who wouldn't lie. Infrared, up in the sky. Camera, bird's eye. Your tongue tied, shaky hands, out of time, dial in, I'm inside, sovereign land, good night. Stand tall, don't let it slide. Colorado, you know I tried. Southern girl, you know I tried. Yeah, yeehaw. Who decides how you live and how you die? That's right, nowhere to hide. It's going down, glad you're on my side. Don't worry now, it's a vibe. Summer of love, it's on the rise. Keep it going, one last time. Don't hold out, you're on my mind.
Unless otherwise stated, the hosts and guests on Bipolar Recorder are not licensed mental health professionals. Bipolar Recorder is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical intervention. If you are having a mental health crisis, please contact your local emergency services.